Good morning. First off, it's all about the U. Today, in the ninth part of the 12-part series of our 2010 opponents, I'll talk about a team that is in total disarray right now, and that's the Maryland Terrapins, our opponent on November 6th at Sun Life Stadium. Some background on the Terps. They went 2-10, 1-7 in the ACC Atlantic in 2009 after a decent 2008 season in which they went 8-5 and won the Humanitarian Bowl in a high-scoring shootout versus Nevada. They are coached by Ralph Friedgen, who is entering his 10th season as the head man in College Park, and with a new weight, and there have been a lot of changes at the top in the administration area, basically with Friedgen's bosses. Debbie Yao is gone. She's now the new AD at North Carolina State. There's a new AD in charge there, and with a new president, Wallace Lowe takes over for retiring President Dan Mote on November 1st, 5 days before our game with them at Sun Life Stadium. Likely with another down season, and many people think it's going to be another down season in College Park. Fridge is out, and ditto for James Franklin, the offensive coordinator, who was supposed to be Friedgen's hand-picked successor once Fridge left. But basically, until then, let's preview this season. So we'll get started right now. On offense, they returned 7 starters. They are led by redshirt junior Jamar Robinson at quarterback, who in 2009 had a passer rating of 109.2, went 46 for 85, 482 yards, 2 touchdowns, and no interceptions, but he was sacked 10 times. That's basically the offense, a terrible offensive line, which I'll talk about in a second. As a rusher, he rushed for 229 yards on 53 carries. And if he struggles, they're going to be calls up in the D.C. area and in Baltimore and all that area, in the Baltimore-Washington area, for redshirt freshman Danny O'Brien to take over the reins if Robinson struggles again this year. On the ground, this has always been the thing. If they're healthy, this team is absolutely loaded at running back. But they've been so snake-bitten by injuries the last couple of years. And in 2010, though, they'll have their leader of this quarterback in fifth-year senior Darrell Scott, who missed 5 games last season with a wrist injury. He did finish 425 yards on 85 carries and 4 touchdowns. He added another 12 receptions for another 111 yards. When healthy, this guy is a threat to take one to the house. They also returned Davin Meggett Jr., who had 6 touchdowns on 338 yards last year and 99 carries, and another 175 yards receiving on 14 receptions with 1 touchdown. And redshirt sophomore Gary Douglas is also returning, he had 81 yards on 16 carries in 2009, another 78 receiving. And they'll get redshirt freshman DJ Adams coming in to be a bruiser in short yardage situations. The receiving corps is led by junior All-ACC first-teamer Torrey Smith, who in 2009 had 827 yards receiving on 61 receptions, along with another 59 yards rushing on 11 carries. He had 6 touchdowns overall, 5 of them receiving, 1 rushing. He was also 6th nationally in all-purpose yardage, and as a kick returner, is a big-time threat to return kicks and punts to the house. This guy's the real deal, folks. To complement Smith on the other side is senior Adrian Cannon, who had 44 receptions for 468 yards and 4 touchdowns in 2009. He should get a lot of receptions this year with teams focusing on Smith. The other receivers returning are 4th-year junior Ronnie Tyler, who had 366 yards on 28 receptions in 2009 with 1 touchdown, and 5th-year senior Laquan Williams, who had another 99 yards and 1 touchdown. Their offensive line in 2009 was just absolutely dreadful, and I mean dreadful. They allowed the 10th most sacks in the country and 18th most in the country in tackles for loss allowed. 2010 doesn't seem to be much better. They only returned 1 senior, and that's 5th-year senior Paul Pinniger. With Bruce Campbell and Phil Costa, who was their 2nd best lineman gone to graduation, the rest of this line is very young experience-wise, and game experience-wise I'm talking about. They do return redshirt sophomore R.J. Dill and true sophomore Justin Gilbert, along with redshirt juniors Andrew Ganella and Bennett Fulper. Between those two, only 13 career starts. I mean, this is it's going to be a very long year for the Terps offense with a very inexperienced offensive, other than Pinniger, a very inexperienced offensive line coming back. Now let's move over to the defensive side of the ball. They were 11th in the ACC in total defense last year. And in 2010, it doesn't seem to be much better. They only returned 5 starters from the 09 squad. The only starter they returned on the D-line is redshirt sophomore A.J. Francis, who had 31 tackles in 2009. On the ends, they returned redshirt junior Derek Drummond, who had 16 tackles, 1.5 tackles for loss last year, and sophomore Justin Anderson had just 3 tackles. This is a very young line, and they don't have a lot of game experience. The only lone spot on the defense that's very good is the linebackers. They return a first-team preseason All-ACC player and senior Alex Wujiak, who had 131 tackles in 2009, 58 of them solo, another 8.5 tackles for loss and 1 sack. He is by far the leader of that defense. But to complement Wujiak on the linebacking core, 5th-year senior Adrian Moulton, who had 68 tackles in 2009, 9 for loss, and 6 sacks. And redshirt sophomore Demetrius Hartfield, who was the breakout player of the year in 2009. He had 64 tackles, 34 of them solos, 6.5 tackles, and 3.5 sacks. Their secondary, if their front 7 struggles again, as many think they will, could be in for another long season. In 2009, they were last in the conference in pass defense, and they only returned 1 starter from that unit, and that's junior Cameron Chisholm, who led the team with 4 interceptions and had 66 tackles, 43 of them solo, and 1.5 tackles for loss. They have 5th-year senior safeties Antoine Perez and redshirt 4th-year junior Kenny Tate coming in as safety, but they don't have much game experience. In fact, Perez and Tate have started a combined, ready for this, a combined 7 games. Bottom line about Maryland in 2010, they are basically starting the rebuilding process for the next coach, and what is going to be an evaluation for the next coach to decide which underclassmen stay or go. With a brutal schedule having Navy in Baltimore and trips to Morgantown, Miami, Clemson, and Chestnut Hill, I look for Maryland to maybe win 4 games, if that. But it won't be enough to keep Fridge around. He's likely out after the season, and there will be a major house cleaning in College Park as soon as the final gun goes off in their season finale. Now I look at it from the CANES perspective. This is a team we should beat handily. The only fear I would have about this game is looking ahead to the Georgia Tech game in Atlanta next week. The following week, I should say. Like the UVA game the week before, this will be no contest. We'll have our 2nd and 3rd units in this game by the end of the 3rd quarter and all the 4th. Maryland's in total disarray, and we need to pay them back big time for the embarrassment they gave us in 2006. We lost by 1 point, 14 to 13 up there. We need to drop the hammer on them and not get anyone hurt going to Atlanta the following week. And speaking of Atlanta, tomorrow the talk will turn to a team that actually won the ACC title last year, the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. See you then, and as always, go Canes.